Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to THDA's Chart Dive series, where we dive right into the charts of famous people you might know to understand why they are the way that they are and to give you insights about the human design chart in action. Today, the spotlight will be on someone who's a lover of love and has a serious fan base known as Swifties, and this is none other than Taylor Swift. So before we get into this video, I just wanted to quickly mention and thank today's sponsor, Bodygraph Chart, which is a multi-purpose platform for human design readers and human design professionals that basically allows you to do a lot of cool things like integrate a chart generator onto your website, create custom auto-generated human design reports for your clients, and also generate and save your library of human design charts that you can use in your readings, in your videos, in your teaching, and so much more. And this is actually what we're going to be using in today's video. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you can continue to satisfy your human design curiosity and be the first to know when we release fresh content here at the Human Design Academy. And for those who are new here, I'm your host, Crystal Alfarero. I'm a human design teacher and guide, and I help people like yourselves make sense of the human design system. And what sparked me to do Taylor Swift today was because I was watching her documentary, Miss Americana, the other day. And while I don't consider myself to be a die-hard Swiftie, I do still find a lot of her music very addicting, and she really started to grow on me as a person as I watched the documentary because I could see so much of myself in her, being a fellow Sag myself. So there are a lot of parallels in our journeys. But anyways, you're gonna find out what's going on in her chart. So if you're ready, let's just dive in. So here we have Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift was born on December 13, 1989 at 5:17 a.m. in West Reading, Pennsylvania. So of course, like I mentioned, she's a Sagittarius sun, and she's also a 5-1 splenic projector on the left angle cross of confrontation. And so being a 5-1 splenic projector, she's here to guide others by using her influence and using her authority to provide practical solutions. And in her case, at least to date, this is delivered through her music. And, it's not hard to find comments like this one. Her music has saved her fans in one way or another. And as a millennial, my generation basically grew up with her since our teen years. And so her music is all about love and relationships and is so relevant to her fans that pretty much grew up with her. All the things that she was going through and that she was writing about were very much relevant to her fan base. And so just a little background about Taylor Swift. She's someone that grew up in an upper middle class family and lived in Pennsylvania and then moved to Nashville when she was around 13 to pursue her career in music. And she also went on to release her first album in 2016 when she was only 16 years old and had her first hit single, which was called Tim McGraw. And this is what got her career moving. So she is someone that's known to be extremely hardworking and always striving to be the best, which we can see through her channel of surrender, the 4426. This is all about someone that has the willpower to be the best at things, and particularly through the gate 26, which is the gate of the egoist. And this is someone that, we can see is doing what she can to do the best that she can and to deliver the best that she can. And so this gate 26 is actually activated by her conscious sun. So you can see there on the conscious side of her design, the 26 line 5. And basically this represents, the core of who she came here to be and what she came here to express in this lifetime. She has this gift of consistent willpower to be productive and be the best at what she does. And this in turn earned her so much success and wealth in her lifetime so far. She's also a risk taker who's here to fight for meaning and purpose with her channel 2838, the channel of struggle. We can see this right at the bottom, connecting the root to the spleen. So this is someone that's here to fight for meaning and purpose in her life. We've seen this manifest in so many ways throughout her journey, which we're going to go into a bit more detail with as we go through this analysis. But from a young age, she's always fought for what she wanted in her life, including pursuing her music at just 13 years old. Like, that's not something that every other 13-year-old is doing. It's not something that a lot of 13-year-olds are even thinking about at that time. So I also wanted to draw some attention to the fact that she's likely a perfectionist as well, with a critical eye for improvement. And we can see this through the 1858 that's connecting the root to the spleen. This is called the channel of judgment. And, this is the gift that helps her write and create and produce music that truly connects with her audience, because she knows that she's always kind of looking for new ways to make things better, to improve things. And, from a personal standpoint, this is also part of her evolving role as a highly influential activist, which we're going to look at as well, and how this plays into her journey, and especially her journey into really stepping in to her highest potential as that 5-1 profile, right? One other thing that I found really interesting is that she's a single definition being. So as you can see, the definition in her chart is all connected. We have the 2644, and then also connecting the ego to the spleen, and then the spleen connected to the root by the 2838 and the 1858. And so what that tells me is that she's someone that's very independent and self-contained or self-sufficient, right? And energetically speaking, people with single definition tend to feel whole and may not necessarily need others to feel complete or to process things. And you can see this in the way that she's written and produced her own music, right? She just gets into that flow. She's kind of taken that whole process from the writing aspect all the way up to the production. And, it's really incredible that she is one of those few artists that, kind of take that whole route, if that makes sense. But anyways, from a romantic standpoint, it also does make sense, in my opinion, because it may make it easier for someone with single definition to walk away from a relationship if they realize it's not working for them anymore, because they don't necessarily need to settle, right? It seems like, and we've seen Taylor Swift in the public eye, especially with her relationships. She seems like she's not someone who will just settle for a relationship because she needs it. But I can definitely see that she's a romantic at heart, which shows up in other areas of her chart as well, and she might have entered certain relationships without really listening to that instinct, really listening if maybe someone was a good partner for her, listening. And when I say listening, I mean listening to her instinct, listening to her splenic authority here, which of course we're going to dive into. But anyways, throughout the documentary Miss Americana that I was watching, you see her start her career as a teenager. And like all of us, we face a lot of resistance and conditioning, especially in those years. And we can see this manifest through a lot of the openness that is in her chart, right? So, for example, we can see that she has this open solar plexus, or this, undefined emotional center, right? And when you have an undefined emotional center, this is someone that's very receptive to picking up other people's emotions, and who can often be avoidant of speaking their truth and speaking, or maybe confronting situations that need to be confronted in order to avoid any kind of emotional backlash or turmoil that they might take in from that. So this was definitely the case for her when she was younger. She really did, for a very long time, take on that good girl, people pleaser persona. And she mentioned in the documentary that she did everything in her power to be good and to be seen as good, right? And so we can see how this might have prevented her from speaking up about a lot of the things that actually mattered to her. And we do see this. So we'll put that on pause for now. But another thing that I'm sure Taylor Swift for is, her love for love. It's no secret that she's had a lot of different, I'm going to say, different relationships, different people. And I say that with no judgment. It's just based on what we've seen in the public eye. So with her Open G Center, which is the center of love and identity and direction, there is this theme of potentially being fixated on finding love. And, this openness could have possibly influenced her to enter relationships that might not have been the best for her, which then could have led her to possible emotional crises or even experiences to learn from. So, going back to her undefined emotional center, she has three dormant activations here. But I wanted to zone in on the gate 6 and the gate 36 in particular because they're part of her incarnation cross, meaning, they're core themes that are a part of her life's work. And being in the emotional center, of course, these are very emotional energies, and being dormant, they're waiting to just be turned on, right? They tend to be sparked in relationship to others. And these gates bring particular themes to the ways that she gets to experience emotions in her life. So, for example, gate 6, this is the gate of friction. It's all about emotional intimacy. So, people with this gate have that capacity to create the friction or warmth needed in order to achieve in order to achieve intimacy in their relationships or not. And just as an example in her life, in her relationships, there could have been this fear of real intimacy and, possibly the struggle to move beyond the surface level with her partners. She might spend a lot of energy trying to meet other people's projections of her being that line 5, that heretic, right? Rather than show her true nature from the beginning. And, when we do that, this can create negative type of friction in relationships, or, surprises, unexpected surprises when the masks fall off down the line. But when she is discerning and trusts her instincts to open herself to the right people, it becomes easier for her to open up. And she becomes so much more capable of creating genuine intimacy with others, and long lasting and meaningful relationships as well. So, this is something where, this is an area of her life where she's here to learn and to be wise about. So she's here to learn and be wise about intimacy. In other words, be discerning about who and when to be intimate with others, right? And with the gate 36, this gate of crisis, on the other hand, it's the energy of craving new experiences that can trigger feelings and emotions. And, this is someone that can go through a lot of emotional crises in their life, which ultimately lead them to change and transformation, or it can cause them to get stuck in a cycle of crisis, if they're not learning from the experiences, or if they're not being discerning about which experiences to enter. So in Taylor's life, this can look like her maybe getting urges to experience something new or to enter maybe a new relationship that she's infatuated in. But at the same time, maybe not listen to her instincts, right? Her splenic authority when her body maybe is telling her no. And maybe it's ignoring the red flags or the lessons from the past, right? And this can possibly lead her to finding herself in the same undesirable situations or undesirable relationship patterns that can be draining, that can be exhausting, that can lead to that resentment and bitterness as a projector. However, when she does listen to her instincts based on her past experiences and her body's intuition, she can find herself entering the right experiences and the right relationships that she's meant to with so much more ease. And she'll spend a lot less time and energy, especially, trying to get out of the negative situations. But in either case, again, it's really through the different challenges and the emotional crises maybe that she goes through that she grows, right? Ultimately, she's here to share this wisdom with her fans. And she does that through all of her songs, which are basically about these experiences that she's had, that the love and the relationships that she's had. Just look at some of the songs: You Belong With Me, I Knew You Were Trouble, Love Story, Blank Space. Those are just some of the basic ones that I know. But anyways, the list goes on. Going back to her personal growth journey, she held on to this good girl image for a long time, right? And it really wasn't until her Saturn return. So she started her Saturn return the same time as me, around 2018. And this is when she started to break free from that good girl persona, from that image, right? And you'll see that her conscious sun is in gate 38, the gate of the fighter, right? And the gate of the fighter is this pressure, this fuel to fight for meaning and purpose in your life. And it's the pressure to fight for what's right to you, right? What's right for you. And with this being activated by Saturn, we see her challenged in this particular theme. We see her challenged by this energy, especially during her Saturn return, and being called to fight for meaning and purpose and speak up for what's right. And unfortunately, you know, it took, and again, I learned this from the documentary, right? It took a sexual assault case to be the turning point for this transition, right? To kick off this transition where she was basically sued for defamation by a man named David Mueller, who had lost his job when Taylor Swift basically reported that he put his hand up her skirt, right? And it's through this difficult situation that her splenic instincts basically kicked into high gear and probably put her in a situation where she was feeling sick. She was feeling physically ill. And, you know, by not saying anything, by choosing to not speak up. And so it probably took that huge amount of discomfort to push her or maybe pull her to do the right thing for her, to pull her to fight back, right? And so luckily when you look at the gate 38 line 5, right, it's in exaltation, and this gives her this ease, it gives her this, and I'm quoting this straight from the I Ching, the Ravi Ching, you know, it's the ambition and concentration to endure. It's the energy to stubbornly fight alone. And so basically, she stuck to her guns. She countersued him for $1 after he sued her for defamation. And she built up the courage to basically speak her truth and testify over the several day trial. And the judge then ruled in her favor, right? And so that took a whole lot of courage for her to do. It was the first time I think she might have been brought into the light in maybe this more negative way than she was used to. And so in Time magazine, later that year, she was actually named the silence breaker in their Person of the Year issue. So that I think attests to the journey that she's on and the path that's, you know, evolving and growing for her, right? This is just the beginning of her speaking up and speaking her truth, because in 2018, actually in the middle, you know, further on in that year, in the middle of her Saturn return, she finally built up the courage to also speak her truth and share her political views, despite her team and years of this, really years of her team and her management coaching her and advising her to never ever share with them, share to the public her political views, so that she wouldn't receive backlash, so that she wouldn't be canceled. Because in the country music industry, I think something similar happened to the Dixie Chicks, where they said something about George Bush, and they were basically canceled and got a lot of negative publicity. And so, anyways, going back to Taylor, you know, her specific political views were made public through this famous Instagram post that made headlines. And yeah, you can basically see that she shares, you know, who it is that she's voting for, why, et cetera, et cetera. Again, you can pause this, you can read this post. It's actually still on her Instagram feed. This is like a screenshot of her Instagram feed post. But anyways, she spoke up about wanting to, you know, make this public, right? And that was not easy for her. Imagine like the people who are kind of in power, you know, over your career, your management, your team, your parents, etc. They're influencing her to basically say, no, be quiet, be a good girl, don't cause any drama. And so I love the scene in Miss Americana in the documentary where we can actually see the moment she like pushed back and fought for her right to speak her truth.
We've got this idea that we could halve the number of people that come to you next to us.
And the other thing, just from a security standpoint, Taylor Swift comes out against Trump.
I don't care if they write that. I'm sad that I didn't 2 years ago, but I can't change that. I'm saying right now that this is something that I know is right, and you guys I need to be on the right side of history, and if he doesn't win, then at least I tried.
Taylor, here's the problem.
I just want to read you what I wrote, and I'm going to try to start. I just really want you to know that this is important to me.
I
this
totally
is something
agree
that,
with
have
the
you
issue.
Have you heard hers? Have you just heard
Yes,
it?
I've read the entire thing, and the bottom line right now, I'm terrified. I'm the guy that went out and bought armored cars.
I worry for her safety as much as anybody does, maybe more. It really is a big deal to me. She votes against fair pay for women. She votes against the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, which is just basically protecting us from domestic abuse and stalking. She thinks that if you're a gay couple, or even if you look like a gay couple, you should be allowed to be kicked out of a restaurant. It's really basic human rights, and it's right and wrong at this point. And I can't see another commercial and see her disguising these policies behind the words Tennessee Christian values. Those aren't Tennessee Christian values. I live in Tennessee. I am Christian. That's not what we stand for. I need to do this. I need you to forgive me for doing it, because I'm doing it.
And so, with all this, you can really see her evolve from artist to leader, and her Gate 45 in the Throat Center becomes, it comes to light, it shines through. And this was not something that we were really used to seeing Taylor in. Of course, she's a musician, and she stepped into the limelight as a musician, as a talented musician. But, we didn't really see her too much as this leader, as this influence, or this influential archetype in that nature, right? Gate 45 is basically the gate of the gatherer. And this is known as that king or queen energy, or that archetypal leader that comes to mind when you think of a leader, right? And being in the throat center, it's one of the voices of leadership when it's earned and when it establishes authority. And so with her Gate 45, line 5, it's actually called leadership. And it can be tied to the gift of expressing leadership on the material plane, right? It's another core life theme for her, since it's activated by her conscious earth. So she actually gets grounding and stability and balance in her life by speaking up and being this leader, embodying her leadership in order to support the well-being and interests of herself and also of her community.
I feel 200 pounds lighter. I've been feeling this way for months.
And so with that, you can see her listening to her instincts to discern when it's healthy for her to speak her truth and confront what needs to be said, especially in these huge public situations. And this is what led her to growth and expansion as an individual. This is what allowed her to expand her influence to new heights outside of music and into the political and social justice space, right? This is when her fifth line heretic influence really started to shine through. And when you think about her fifth line and the fifth line archetype, it's unconventional. It's here to speak the uncomfortable, heretical. I always struggle with that word. To speak the at times, uncomfortable truths, heretical beliefs, and by doing that, influence change, right? So despite the backlash that she received, she did it anyways, and she shared her truth. And through that Instagram post that you saw, right, she really uses that fifth line magnetism and influence in her favor, and got over 50,000 new voter registrations within 24 hours, which is incredible. And it's by taking the time to learn with her line 1, right, to solidify her stance in a way, or just not necessarily her stance, but to solidify what it is that she believes and what she what she feels. And it's through that line 1 also that's she was able to get a solid foundation to speak from, right? She wasn't just pulling things up out her butt. Like, she took the time to really understand what she was fighting for and why she was fighting for it. And, along with that, this fuel to fight for something that brings meaning and purpose in her life with that Gate 38, that's helped her significantly in transcending the challenges of that open emotional center and fully step into the 5-1 profile, right? We step into our profile as we and we step into our purpose as we, overcome the challenges, as we listen and make decisions according to our strategy and authority. And so with that, she ended up becoming one of the most successful and I would say influential artists of my generation, which is also funny because the signature theme of projectors is success, right? And one of the core characteristics of the 5-1 profile is influence and the potential for pretty large scale influence in particular. And we can see that through Taylor Swift. We can see that through the pull and the gravitation that her community has with her. And so, lastly, I wanted to talk about Taylor's life's work, right? So, Taylor Swift was born on the left angle cross of confrontation, which essentially combines the themes of the gate 26, gate 45, and on the conscious side, and then the gate 6 and 36 on the unconscious side that we spoke about earlier in this video analysis. And in Taylor's case, right, her life's work, this left angle cross of confrontation, is to use her willpower and her leadership to confront situations that need to be changed for the well-being and success for others, right? Her purpose is very transpersonal in nature. It's about serving others and helping others. And her purpose is fulfilled through her own personal transformation, right? With her gate 26 being in the quarter of mutation, it's fulfilled through her own personal transformation. And we can see that huge shift in her personal transformation in the moment that she decided to break free from that good girl persona and speak up for her beliefs, right?
I feel really good about not feeling muzzled anymore. And it was my own doing. I needed to learn a lot before I spoke to 200 million people. But I've educated myself now, and it's time to take the masking tape off of my mouth. Like forever.
Today, we've seen her confronting issues like sexual harassment, racism, police brutality, and also advocating for abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, and gun control. She's using her voice and her willpower to make the world a better place for her community, right? She's confronting things that matter in order to make a better place for her community, even if it's difficult, right? And I feel like we'll only see her grow and create this large scale impact and continue to live out her purpose as this influential authority as she continues to follow her instinct and intuition to confront what matters to her. So that's it for today's chart dive. And if you want to learn how to read and analyze the human design chart, just like we did today, and maybe you want to add it to your skill set as a coach or a service provider, or even start a meaningful career or business in human design, this is exactly what I train my students to do inside THDA's Reader Certification Program. We go beyond the information that you're learning about on this channel and actually help you build the confidence and the skills to analyze, to synthesize, and to apply and deliver human design in the most empowering way possible, and especially in an incredibly supportive community. So if this is something that feels aligned and correct for you, I invite you to click the link in the description down below to learn more, or even to enroll right now and get started right away. Anyways, if you like these types of videos, I'd be so grateful if you could let me know by hitting that like button and hitting subscribe to see more chart dives like this one. So with that said, have an amazing day or evening, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.